When the sun rises, do you not see a round disk of fire, somewhat like a guinea? Oh no, no, I see an innumerable company of the heavenly host, crying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. I question not my corporeal eye any more than I would question a window concerning a sight. I look through it, and not with it. Those are the words of a man named William Blake. He wrote them around 1810, in private notes he never expected anyone to read, and he meant every syllable literally. London, 1757. William Blake is born into an artisan family. His father, James, runs a hosiery shop on Broad Street in Soho. No aristocratic connections, no university education, no institutional backing of any kind. A working-class child in the age of Newton and Locke, born into a century that prided itself on having outgrown superstition. At approximately 4 years old, the boy looks up at a window and screams. His wife Catherine would remind him of it decades later. You know, dear, the first time you saw God was when you were 4 years old, and he put his head to the window and set you screaming. Blake himself could not recall the incident. It had happened before memory could hold it, but the screaming was real. Something had appeared at that glass, something that filled a small child with the kind of terror the Hebrew scriptures call yirah, the trembling that arrives when the sacred gets too close. A few years later, around 8 or 10, the boy is walking on Peckham Rye near Idlelich Hill, about 7 miles from home, a long walk for a child. He looks up at a tree. Alexander Gilchrist, Blake's first biographer, recorded the event with care. Sauntering along, the boy looks up and sees a tree filled with angels, bright angelic wings, bespangling every bough like stars. He goes home, he tells his father. His father raises a hand to beat him for lying. His mother intervenes. This is the decisive moment, not because it was his earliest vision, but because it was the first time he discovered that other people cannot see what he sees. His biographer John Higgs put it plainly. Before this, Blake could have believed that the things he saw were a common part of the world. It was only after his father reacted violently that Blake understood this was not the case. He was 8 years old, and the world had just split in two. On another summer morning, he watched haymakers at work in a field and saw angelic figures walking among them, not above the field, not descending from heaven, walking alongside the laborers, participating in the harvest, as if the sacred and the ordinary were woven through each other completely. Frederick Atatam, a sculptor who knew Blake in his final years, records that Blake's mother beat him for running in and claiming he had spotted the prophet Ezekiel under a tree in the fields. Both parents, at different moments, punished the child for reporting what he witnessed. He learned the lesson every visionary child learns. What you perceive, others do not perceive, and the telling of it brings punishment. But Blake never stopped seeing, and he never stopped telling. His father, despite threatening beatings, sent him to drawing school instead of conventional education, sensing something extraordinary in the child he could not comprehend. Here is the fact that sets Blake apart from every other figure in the history of Western mysticism. This was not a man who had breakthrough experiences. This was a man who inhabited continuous visionary perception for nearly 70 years. Henry Crabb Robinson, a diarist and barrister who spent hours in conversation with Blake near the end of his life, noticed something remarkable about the way Blake spoke of the spiritual world. He used, Robinson wrote, the ordinary unemphatic tone in which we speak of trivial matters that everyone understands and cares nothing about. For William Blake, seeing angels was as unremarkable as noticing clouds. February 1787, Blake is 29. His younger brother Robert is dying of tuberculosis. William keeps vigil at his bedside for 2 full weeks without rest, without sleep. At the moment of death, Blake watches Robert's released spirit rise through the ceiling, clapping its hands for joy. Not grief, joy, the departing brother celebrating his liberation. Robert does not leave. In a letter to his patron William Haley, written 13 years after the death, Blake explains, "13 years ago, I lost a brother, and with his spirit, I converse daily and hourly in the spirit, and see him in my remembrance, in the regions of my imagination. I hear his advice, and even now write from his dictate." The letter Haley is holding has been, in some sense, directed by a dead man. Shortly after Robert's death, his spirit appears to Blake in a night vision and reveals the secret of relief etching, a revolutionary printing technique that would allow Blake to produce every one of his illuminated books. Catherine goes out with their last half-crown, all the money they possess in the world, to purchase the materials, 1 shilling and 10 pence. By the end of the day, they have proved the concept works. Every plate of the marriage of heaven and hell, every page of Jerusalem, every copy of Songs of Innocence. All of it emerges from a method taught by a ghost. From this point forward, Blake's art, poetry, and theology become inseparable from his claim of direct contact with the invisible. The doors are not merely open, they will never close again. Blake does not merely receive visions, he maps them. He develops a precise system of perception, his fourfold vision, laid out in a letter to Thomas Butts on November 22, 1802, composed while walking from Ifelpham to Lervant along the Sussex coast. The final lines are a prayer. "Now I a fourfold vision see, and a fourfold vision is given to me. 'Tis fourfold in my supreme delight, and threefold in soft ebullious night, and twofold always. May God us keep from single vision and Newton's sleep." Single vision is Newton's dead material world, the sun as a round disk of fire like a guinea. Twofold vision is simultaneous outer and inner sight. In the same letter, Blake describes the experience precisely. "'Twas outward a sun, inward loss in his might." He perceives the physical sun and at the same time recognizes Lowe's, his prophetic blacksmith of divine imagination, blazing inside it. Blake says he inhabits twofold vision always, he never falls below it. Threefold is the full visionary state. Fourfold is supreme delight, total union with the divine. And single vision, Newton's sleep, is not merely limited perception, it is a spiritual illness. The human being has closed himself up, Blake writes, till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. This is not philosophy, it is autobiography. Blake converses with the dead as casually as with the living. Robinson records him describing frequent meetings with Milton, who appeared at various ages and once requested that Blake correct an error in Paradise Lost. Blake declined. When Robinson asks in what language Voltaire addressed him, Blake offers an answer of extraordinary precision. "To my sensation, it was English. It was like the touch of a musical key. He touched it, probably French, but to my ear, it became English." That is not the answer of a man fabricating stories. That is someone attempting to describe a genuine experience that ordinary language cannot contain. The prophetic books are not literary invention, but dictation. Writing to Butts in 1803, Blake confesses the nature of his creative process. "I have written this poem from immediate dictation, 12 or sometimes 20 or 30 lines at a time, without premeditation and even against my will. The poems arrive already formed. The composition is involuntary. Blake is not the author. He is the secretary. In his 60s, Blake sits with the astrologer John Varley late at night. Varley names a historical figure. Blake stares into the dark until the spirit arrives, then draws as if from a live sitter. During one session, he is sketching the ghost of a flea when the spirit opens its mouth mid-pose. Blake stops the first drawing and begins a second, a separate sketch capturing the changed expression because the apparition has shifted while he worked. Varley reported that the spirit told Blake all fleas were inhabited by souls of men who were by nature bloodthirsty to excess and providentially confined to the size of insects. The resulting drawing is muscular, reptilian, clutching a cup meant for blood. Blake is responding to something he perceives as actually present, something invisible to everyone else in the room. And here is what Blake insists, again and again, to anyone who will listen. This capacity is not unique to him. He tells Robinson that all men partake of it, but it is lost by not being cultivated. To Samuel Palmer, he puts it even more directly. You can see what I see if you choose. You have only to work up imagination to the state of vision, and the thing is done. The doors are not sealed, they are merely shut. Blake lives his entire adult life in poverty and obscurity, virtually unknown to the wider public, considered a harmless madman by most contemporaries. Robert Hunt, reviewing his 1809 exhibition in the Examiner, calls him an unfortunate lunatic, whose personal inoffensiveness secures him from confinement. Robinson himself struggles with the question, shall I call him artist or genius or mystic or madman? Probably he is all. Yet Samuel Palmer, who knew Blake in those final years at Fountain Court, describes something altogether different. He was a man without a mask, his aim single, his path straightforward and his wants few, so he was free, noble and happy. Catherine Blake learns to read, to draw, to print, and reportedly begins to see visions herself. She tells a visitor, with a kind of cheerful exasperation, I have very little of Mr. Blake's company, he is always in paradise. After his death, she reports that his spirit visits her for 2 or 3 hours every day. April 1827, Blake writes his last known letter, addressed to George Cumberland, and the words carry the full weight of a dying man who is not afraid. I have been very near the gates of death, and have returned very weak, and an old man feeble and tottering, but not in spirit and life, not in the real man, the imagination which liveth forever. In that I am stronger and stronger as this foolish body decays. August 12, 1827, his final day. He has been working on illustrations for Dante until illness confined him to bed. He finishes coloring a print of the Ancient of Days, the image of Urizen measuring the void with a compass, a vision that first appeared hovering over his head at the top of a staircase 30 years earlier. He examines it, throws it down. There, that will do, I cannot mend it. Then he turns to Catherine. Stay, Kate, keep just as you are. I will draw your portrait, for you have ever been an angel to me. In Blake's vocabulary, calling Catherine an angel is not a figure of speech. He has been seeing and speaking with angels since the age of 4. He is telling her what she is. George Richmond, an 18-year-old painter and devoted disciple, writes to Samuel Palmer 3 days later. He died on Sunday night at 6 o'clock in a most glorious manner. He said he was going to that country he had all his life wished to see and expressed himself happy, hoping for salvation through Jesus Christ. Just before he died, his countenance became fair. His eyes brightened, and he burst out singing of the things he saw in heaven. A woman lodging in the house said afterward, I have been at the death, not of a man, but of a blessed angel. Blake's influence runs forward through the centuries like a lit fuse. Aldous Huxley takes the title The Doors of Perception directly from Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell. In 1948, Allen Ginsberg hears Blake's voice, a very deep earthen grey voice, reading Our Sunflower in a Harlem apartment, and experiences what he will later call the deepest spiritual event of his life. Philip K. Dick's 2374 experience reproduces Blake's entire cosmology 200 years later, a false reality maintained by a deluded power, authentic perception revealing a more real order beneath the surface. But Blake's position remains singular. He was not a man who had a breakthrough experience. He was a man who lived inside one for 70 years and who died still inside it. Singing. A child on Peckham Rye looks up at a tree. The boughs are full of wings. Blake wrote in Jerusalem, "The imagination is not a state, it is the human existence itself." And in his annotations to Reynolds, "The man who never in his mind and thoughts traveled to heaven is no artist." The question Blake forces on you is not whether his visions were real. It is whether our blindness is.